Hello my friends, Steve Dempster, Dempster Guitar Studio, back almost into the new year with the startup of some new videos for the Guitarist's Toolbox. And in this video, I want to explore why it is that so many guitarists avoid really learning the fretboard. Now, I don't mean in terms of just frets and strings and shapes, but actually know the notes on it. So we're going to dig into that right after this. Okay, welcome back. Get my pick here, get all set to rock and roll a little bit. So what is it about the fretboard, this thing that just drives people so crazy about learning it? There's a whole school of thought that says you don't even need to think about what notes are under your fretboard. And then, of course, there's the other school of thought that says you really should know it so that you have some command over your craft. And I think that's really the big picture here. Yes, we as guitarists use shapes to help us navigate the fretboard. In terms of scales, we have these shapes sort of memorized in our mind and in our muscle memory. That's a good thing. But because we get quick results from memorizing shapes, we tend then to avoid going into the area of learning the actual notes that we played when we did that. Whatever it is that's making up the sounds, we're seeing it as shape. And again, nothing wrong with it. We do use it. But if you want access to all the other stuff that makes music, you have to understand that the sort of lowest common denominator, if you can put it that way, of everything in music boils down to the note. Whether you're clustering notes into scales, into arpeggios, into chords, those things are the shape they are because of the notes that make it up. So why you would choose not to study that is a crazy idea. Having said that, it is a challenge. There's no question about it. If you look at a keyboard, for example, a piano keyboard, it doesn't take you long to realize there seems to be some kind of an interesting pattern going on here. And if you got a sense of where certain notes were located anywhere on that fretboard, you could probably locate, or rather relocate, the same notes either a few octaves higher or a few octaves lower pretty quickly within a lesson. No big deal. The guitarist, on the other hand, has very little information to go on. We've got strings, we have frets. Some of us have dots on the surface of the fretboard. Some have dots on the edge of the fretboard that are mimicking the dots on the front. So it's kind of one and the same. And we have to use that information to navigate this. We have to have our own mental maps to be able to pull this off effectively. And let me say that I think one of the worst ways that you could learn the fretboard is sort of by convincing yourself that, let's say, every day you get up, have your tea or coffee, and then you say to yourself, today I'm going to learn the notes on the first string. And I've seen this a lot, and a lot of students will do something like this. They go E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, B, C, etc., etc. And they're not getting it wrong. But what's not happening is that the mind, the brain, doesn't have really anything to relate the location of those notes to something else with, doesn't have anything to relate those notes to, that really helps burn their note names and their locations into your mind very quickly. It becomes a bit of a rote exercise where you can name off the notes in sequence because you have that sequence to work with. The real game is to be able to land on something and then be able to say to yourself relatively quickly, that's an F sharp. Why is it an F sharp? We'll get into that. Not in this video so much, but in a few videos down the road, I'm definitely going to be covering that. So today what we're going to do is, what I'm going to do is give you a mental map that will begin the process of helping you to learn the fretboard. And I'm not going to say quickly, and I'm hesitant to say easily, because it does take a bit of effort, but it's a consistent effort over time, and it's a small amount of effort done consistently over time. It actually should become part of your habit of practice. So, the way I like to approach this when students are interested in learning this stuff is I go right to the 5th string, because it's an A. And because in music the notes that we work with are just like the notes, or rather the letters of the written alphabet, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, blah, 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 etc., etc., we in music use only 7 of those letters. In fact, only the first 7. All the music that you generally hear is using combinations of only 7 letter names. Now, to be clear, some of those letters can be altered, you know, with sharps and flats. We're not going to cover that today. But it's important to realize that so much music comes out of only 7 letters. And you have 26 letters in the written alphabet that you have to work with in order to read and write and do all the things we do. In that field, we're only working with 7 in music. It can't be that difficult to get a handle on it. I think part of it is that we just have somehow convinced ourselves that it's a challenge. So let's have at it. The 7 letters fall very nicely on that A string, like this. A is the open string to get started with. And you can see that. I'm just hitting the 5th string here. One day I'll have a second camera where I can show real close-ups, but here we go. So that's an A. The B, I'm just going to tell you for now, is 2 frets up from that open A. 1, 2. Boom. That's a B. So we're just going up the musical alphabet, A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, and it ends. And then starts again. And starts again. And each time you repeat that process, you're going up an octave. If you went backwards, doing the letters in reverse, G, F, E, D, C, B, A, G, you'd be going downward in octaves. Simple as that. And again, you could see this very easily on a keyboard. You can see it pretty easily on the fretboard too. A, B is at the 2nd fret. C is at the 3rd fret, so B and C right beside each other. D is at the 5th. E is at the 7th. F is at the 8th. Side by side, just like B and C. F to G, up to the 10th fret for the G, and then terminate the whole thing at the 12th fret, having hit another A an octave higher. So it's just this sound. And back down we go. That happens to be, just take it on faith for now, that happens to be the sound of the A natural minor scale. And it goes very well with an A minor chord. Now the job for you is, number 1, to take the time, make the time, put in the time to go A, yeah, got it, B, 2 frets up, B and C right next door, anywhere on the fretboard. C to D, 2 frets, D to E, 2 frets, E to F, side by side, F to G, 2 frets, G to A, 2 frets. And you could continue. A to B, 2 frets. B to C, side by side. C to D, D to E, E to F, F up to G on my guitar, depending on the number of frets you have on your instrument. The point is that within that, at least itself, there's a pattern going on. And the pattern, if you want a quick way to remember it, this is how I do it, just say to yourself, there's only 2 clusters of notes, or 2 clusters of notes that are a semitone, or 1 fret apart from one another. It's B and C and E and F. All the other consecutive notes are 2 frets apart. So you don't even really have to remember that. It's like a default thing. Just remember B and C and E and F are only 1 fret apart. They're side by side. We call that a semitone. All the other notes, by default, are 2 frets apart. That doesn't take too long to put into the brain. The real challenge is when you're practicing to remember the note names of the location of sounds on your fretboard, you have to be very conscious that that's what you're trying to do. In other words, and it's hard to articulate this, but this could be a bit of an example of how at least my mind might be working if I were trying to relearn the fretboard. You know, I might go, okay, I remember A to B just because I've done that a lot and I've started down here many, many, many times, and my mind has gotten used to that relationship, A to B. B to C, oh yeah, I remember Steve telling me it's only 1 fret higher, B to C. So that little segment, that little thing, if you will, might become quickly absorbed into your mind without too much effort. And it's a relationship thing. It's visual, you can see where things are sitting. 2nd fret, 3rd fret, open. There's a sound associated with it. Da 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 da. A, B, C, B, A. This is an A as well, on the 5th fret, 1st string. 2 frets up is B. 1 fret up is C. Same exact relationship is happening. A, B, C, B, A. A, B, C, B, A. A, B, C, B, A. Another A here. 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 A, B, C, B, A. A, B, C, B, A, all over the place. The point is that that little relationship exists everywhere on the fretboard. When we farm this out, or when we play it out over the whole scale, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, it becomes just one big relationship of notes to one another. This is a far more productive, approach to learning the notes on the fretboard than just sort of randomly going, okay, this is E, that's F, this is F sharp, this is G. If that's how your brain works and you can learn it, then by all means do it. I was never any good at remembering the fretboard that way. I can always remember seeing images of the fretboard just filled up with all these notes. How's anybody going to remember that? You have to look for relationships to do it the best. A, B, C. C to D is 2. A, B, C, D, C, B, A. Ba, da, 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 da. You notice I'm humming and singing along as best I can. That's an important feature to take on. Da, 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 da. If you can do it, I would argue to do it. And even if you can't, I would attempt it. Because the better your relationship vocally to what you're playing, the quicker this sets in. It gets deeper into your bones. A, B, C, D, C, D, C, B, C, B, D, C, B, A. And what then happens, and this takes a little bit of time, you start to make almost anticipation of what sound is going to be. If I play this sound having played that sound so much in relation to this one, C to D, which is 2 frets apart, if I go from this note here to this note here, but I don't play it yet, I can almost anticipate what that sound's going to be. So what I'm trying to do here is give you some insight into all the chemistry that might be going on in someone's mind to help them learn the fretboard. There's the sound of the thing, there's the feel of the thing, there's the look of the thing, what frets and what strings are being utilized, and then ultimately there's the relationship of notes to one another along one string. This is, in my opinion, it's a very good way to start the process of learning note location on the fretboard. So, A, B, C, D. D to E is 2 frets. D, E, da, 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 da. E to F is 1. Da, 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 da. Now, I'm certainly not expecting you to be able to anticipate that sound yet. That's just something that comes from familiarity, or you're already somebody who's wired up for that skill set, and some people are. I wasn't, had to work at it. Ba 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 da da. So that's E to F, E to F. E's on the 7th fret, F's on the 8th, da 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 da. D on the 5, E on the 7, C on the 3, D on the 5, B on the 2. You know, little games I play with my mind to help me remember these things. Of course, I'm assuming many of you don't actually read music, which is a very common feature for guitarists. I was taught to read from day one, which I'm very thankful for, but I was ignorant. I mean, I just did what I was told. It was a very different climate back in that day. You walk in and you go, okay, here's what you do. Regardless of whether I wanted to do something else, it really didn't even occur to me to say that. I just did what I was told. And so my point here is that learning to read music forces you to find these notes as you find these sounds as you see them on the page. And through that process, if you are interested in it, it forces you to recall the name of the note and remember its location. Because if you know how music is written, there's nothing about a written note that tells you its name or its location. That's something you just have to memorize, and then through repetition you get good at. So there's many different ways that you could be absorbing information to help you learn the fretboard. So assuming you're not reading, I'm keeping that out of the picture for the time being. A, B, C, D, E, F. G comes next. It's not B and C or E and F, so it's 2 frets away. That's G. Hey, where is it? It's at the 10th fret, 2 frets below the double dots on my guitar. Relationship. Do you see what I'm getting at? G, F, 2 frets below. E, 1 fret below. D, 2 below. C, 2 below. B, 1 below. Back to A. Anything that can help you get those relationships going. F, up to G, and then finally hitting A again at the double dots of the fretboard, which you should know, I hope you do, that all the notes at the 12th fret are identical, letter name-wise, to the open strings of your guitar. So you started with an open A, and you ended up A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, with an A right at the 12th fret. So you've gone a full octave. That's a relationship. The more you can incorporate these relationships, then you could play something like, and you'd be able to name that note because you hit this A, you hit the A at the octave because you understood that relationship, and then you, for whatever reason, your fingers went 2 notes or 2 frets below the A, and your brain goes click, click. Oh, yeah, that's a G because I'm going backwards from A, And I remember that G to A is always 2 frets apart. It's all about relationships. And then from G you can get to F, because that's 2 frets. And then as you get really familiar with it, you can start really jumping around. Big leaps. Really being able to name those things by having all that information hitting you all at once. The distances between notes, the feel, the sound, the look of it. You start to be able to quickly bring together, yeah, that's E, that's A, there's F. And then you've got, you can play around with it a bit. Which, as you know, is a big deal for me. I think it's important to play around with these ideas, as I often say, like pushing sand in a sandbox. Nobody tells you how to do it, you just have to sit around and do it. But you have to be able to be aware of what you're hitting, not just where your fingers are going. Okay, we're back. All apologies for technical difficulties that occur sometimes in the making of said videos. But we're back. So, what I wanted to leave you with, given the fact that you now have, and for some of you, you're very used to this whole notion of the natural notes laid out on the 5th string is a great place to start, but pulling together a number of different perspectives that help you layer the note names onto your brain. So first of all, there's just the awareness of the sequence of the notes from A to G as they move up the 5th string. That's pretty straightforward. You could simply memorize their location, hence just using fret knowledge, and move up the sequence, right? Pretty straightforward. But underneath that, there could be a number of other, what I call chemistries going on to help you reinforce the note names, not just the physical, graphical action of moving up and down a string. So what I'm suggesting is that as you go through these locations, in one sense, you could take a small portion of the sequence and sort of build up not only a muscle memory, a finger memory, spatial awareness of where those notes are located in what frets, but you could also be aware of the distances between the notes to help you organize their names. Of course, the open string is A. Then you've memorized however and for whatever reason that B is 2 frets up. C is always right next door. That's just a given. That's just something that should be at the top of your mind. D is always 2 from C. E is always 2 from from D, etc., etc., all the way up through the pattern. You could be thinking of that. You might be thinking of the sound of it, anticipating just through sheer experience. As you look down upon things, you develop a visual connection almost to your ear that gives you a sense of, I know what that next note's going to sound like now before I hit it. All of these features can come into play, not all of which you need to be expert at. I'm not suggesting that at all. What I am suggesting is be playful with the process. Take some time in your practice and just be playful with it. Explore it. Don't lose that sort of childlike inclination just to, as I say, push sand around and try to make something. Just explore it without any formality behind it, is the idea. That's what we've just done. Now, of course, if you think about this, you can apply exactly the same procedure to any of the remaining strings. It's just that the note you're starting with, which would be an open string, one of the open strings, is a different note. And then from that point upward, you just follow the sequence as you have just done on the 5th string. Let me demonstrate that for you. Let's go to the 3rd string. It's a G. You know from hopefully memory, there is memorization that does have to go on here, that from G to the next note, which would be A, there's 2 frets between it. That's an A. A to B is always 2 frets. Hey, B to C, you should know it, it's only 1. C to D is always 2. C to D is always 2. D to E is always 2. E to F is always 1, just like B and C. And then what have we got? E to F, F to G. And you've reached the octave of your open string. Now this doesn't sound like what you did on the 5th string. That is a very common scale sound, which is called the natural minor scale. The sound of this thing, starting on a G, but using the exact same notes, is also a scale, but it derives itself from another scale. And therefore, we tend to call it a mode. So it's not going to sound exactly the same. Take a listen to it. So we have G to A to B, B to C, C to D, D to E, E to F, F to G, and then if you wanted, you could continue on up and, you know, just blow it right out the end of the fretboard, and you'd be flying all over the place in time. And you can do this process on each string. If you start from the B string, the 2nd string, you just go B to C, 1 fret. That's what it looks like. C to D is 2, D to E is 2, E to F is 1, etc., etc. Away we go up the fretboard. Same idea. You can do this on each and every string, and if you think about it, what that means is that at least almost practically, but mostly theoretical right now, you could play every natural note on every string up and down your fretboard. Let's just limit it to the 12th fret for the time being. That's a lot of knowledge already in, you know, how long has the video been so far? Let's say less than a half hour. That's pretty darn good. That's far more effective than sort of going through each note location and just committing things to memory with no relationship going on. This is the key feature. It's all about the relationship between notes, between the notes and the sound, between the note sounds and your eyes, all of it. It's all about relating to something you already know. It could be that you already know the names of your open strings from a previous video that I did. So you're using that knowledge to help you figure out the subsequent notes up the string. It could be, and almost always is, that some location on the fretboard sticks in your mind and it becomes an anchor note or a tone that you could play around. I'm using the B note here on the 3rd string, that for some reason, hard to explain why, it just stuck. Somebody showed you it, they named it, you never forgot it, and you're able to locate other notes around it in relationship to it. And there may be more that you might discover. This is why you have to play with this stuff, play around with it, so that you get your own discoveries that make sense to the way you think. Even though there's tons of books out there on how to learn the notes of the fretboard, they're often omitting your simple, childlike, innocent ability to take this thing, know where some of these natural notes are located, or in your case now, all of them up to the 12th fret, and play with it. Whether you play it with a backing track, or you stamping your foot, stomping your foot, and trying to keep a beat to it. Yes, that would be a good idea, but it's not essential right now. You're trying to get your brain to be thinking, okay, G, B, G, B, C, D, A, D, E, F, E, what's the, D, G. You're trying to go through that. And I don't see it as a struggle personally. I just see it as just cool exploration. Even if I make boo-boos, who cares? Nobody's going to care. They're not around you when you're doing it. So enjoy the process. So this gets you to a point where ideally now, as I said, you would have all the notes of the all the natural notes, excuse me, of the fretboard mapped out. We haven't touched any of the sharps or flats, and what you really want to get good at is locating those natural notes. One exercise that a teacher had shown me was to be able to name the notes that occur across one fret. Now sometimes, of course, depending on the fret, you're going to end up with a with a sharp note or a flat note. But a good place to start would be the 5th fret. So, you know, you think, okay, well that's an A, that's a D, that's a G, that's a C, that's an E, and that's an A. That's a good little exercise to try to do, and they're just natural notes. You could do, of course, the same thing at the 12th fret. Let's see what happens at the 7th fret. Most of it will work here. So you have a B. Now, if you don't know what the next one is, you might be able to reference it to something you know down here, like this note. D makes this note E. So I've got B, and then E, and then A, and then D. Now here I have F sharp, so that throws it a little wrench into the system, but that's okay. Let's just forget about it, and then we come back to a B. Things like that are very helpful, and there's a whole host of other mental maps that we're going to tap into a little later down the road. So there you have it. It's an approach to learning the fretboard, which is, you know, you got to use your brain a little bit. You've got to get your fingers used to where things are located and how to access them in an efficient way. That comes with experience. You have to perhaps combine your visual awareness of where these notes are located with your brain's ability to name the note as you play it. So you have to do this kind of slow. In real playing, you're going through the notes often so quickly you're not thinking of them like that, but you may have a target note that you are thinking about, and that's good. Your ability to do that is going to open up dramatically your ability to understand how chords are built, how arpeggios are built, not just how they're done. I mean, everybody on the planet who wants to play a guitar can do this. But not everybody who does this is thinking G, B, D, F sharp, G, B, D, F sharp, G. And where those notes are coming from, they come from the G major scale. They come from that thing. If you know something really well, then the next thing you'd want to learn is something almost related to it, so that you're drawing on what you know well to learn something less well, equally well. To me, that is the way you should be sequencing your lesson plans as you go through learning the guitar. And avoid getting overwhelmed by just randomly grabbing this person's channel and this and this and this and trying to make sense of it all. And of course, that's what my channel is all about, is helping you understand if you're good at this, if you take the time to be good at it, when it comes time to learn the next logical thing, this thing's going to be real easy to learn. because you already got this. I hope that makes sense for you. So there we have it. We've explored the natural note layout on the fretboard. What I'd recommend you do is, and I'll put a link to this in the notes below, just download the charts that I have available. They're empty charts that I have available for you. You should take that, then make photocopies of it, and develop your own exploration of these natural note sounds on the fretboard. And as you do, start locating them on the fretboard, because just writing them in helps you learn them. But don't write them as dots. Write them as letters. The note names themselves. The dot is self-evident. That's a location. The dot is just a graphic. We learn it quicker, I admit that. So it's in your mind a little bit, but you also have to know that note that's underneath the dot, so to speak. If you like this video, thought it was useful for you, don't hesitate to share it around. We like and love the love. And subscribe to my channel if you'd like more videos like this. And certainly don't hesitate to leave some comments below about this or any other video that I'm presenting to you. I love to hear from you, and I always do my best to engage with you. Steve Dempster, Dempster Guitar Studio. We'll see you next time. Cheers. Bye-bye.